Welcome to the MMA Opinion Podcast. My name is Liam O'Griffin and I'm joined as always by Mr. Paul O'D.
Hello, and on today's episode we are going to talk about news items including the meeting between Dana and Khabib, the loss of MMA pioneer Paul Varelans, and we look ahead to March Madness.
And I also want to ask you about your excellent interview with the OG that is Nate Rock Quarry.
And we are also going to review Saturday night's Fight Island card and briefly look ahead to this week's bouts.
So, lots to be getting on with. Let's be getting on.
I want to fight with Chuck. Chuck.
I think he just blew his wad there.
Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck.
Are you still drunk right now? Are you still drunk? What's going on?
This is Bruce shit.
Frank Mir had a horseshoe up his ass.
Oh, poor old Frank Mir gets the fade out there.
As always.
Poor bugger. What a weekend, huh?
Unbelievable.
Unreal.
Unbelievable. Fights are back, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely.
Let us know how excited you are, and as always, comment in the comment section below and we'll pick up on a few throughout the show.
So we want to get in with a few news items first. So what was the first news item that we were talking about there?
Look, I suppose first off, we might as well just touch on the Paul Varelans news that broke yesterday. A UFC and MMA pioneer died at 51 due to COVID-related issues. Now, Paul has been in a medically induced coma for a few weeks now, and he contracted the virus and was hospitalised in early December. But I suppose those the newer MMA fans, and I suppose, geez, not even newer, we're going right back to 1994, 1995 for Paul Varelans.
Yeah.
But some legendary fights in the octagon in the real early days before the rule set came in, and but definitely worth, if you have Fight Pass, to go back and check them out. UFC 6 was where he made his debut, had a KO elbow of Cal Warsham and a loss to Tank Abbott, another legend of the sport. And in UFC 7 got all the way to the final, and it famously lost to Marco Huas in one of the longer fights up to that point. I think it was 13-14 minute fight, leg kicks and punches. But yeah, he had a phenomenal career. Never the most skilled guy inside there, but he was 6'8". He was built like a brick shithouse, and he was just trouble for anyone there. If he landed on you, he was going to cause trouble.
And I was asking you just before we went live here, was this the first fighter-related COVID death that was a mainstream death? I can't think of any off the top of my head, but you obviously brought up the...
Yeah, of course. Probably most infamously it was Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, who had COVID-related issues, and I don't think it was COVID in the end that took him, but it was due to the fact that he had underlying health conditions, but it was COVID that hospitalised him in the start. But yeah, look, I suppose COVID is kind of rampant worldwide. That there's going to be losses within the sport and stuff like that, but it is very sad, and our sympathies do go out to his family and friends at this time.
Absolutely. Always sad to see a pioneer go, like.
Yeah, definitely, and one that I suppose might have for a long time been overlooked, just based on the fact that he never won a tournament, even though he was active in a few of them. But he fought some of the legends back then. He fought Dan Severn, he fought Marco Huas, he fought Tank Abbott, he fought some of the big names, Mark Hall. Some phenomenal fights as well.
What do we have next?
So next up, we are going to, I suppose, we'll talk about the Khabib and Dana meeting.
Oh yeah,
big news, or well, is it?
Really? No, it's not. It was a waste of time. What a waste of time. They waited all week and they hyped it up all week. Is this going to be a yes or a no? And then it turns out it's a we'll see.
Yeah, basically.
What a waste.
We learned nothing,
yeah.
And I think the ball was dropped a little bit on Dana's part in that he made this big announcement that at 8 o'clock we'll be breaking the Khabib news and how it'll affect the McGregor-Poirier fight. And I think if he didn't do that and he just came out with the news, fine. But the fact that he built up some suspense behind it and then it just fell a little bit flat. Now, the flip side of that is there seems to be an inclination that Khabib will come back and compete if he's impressed by someone this weekend. So I suppose the ball is in their court as far as that is concerned.
Well, we have Seth the Bat Slayer is straight in there.
Back again.
He's going to torture us today now again. Anything we say wrong today, he's going to come on and just whoop us around the place. But
he's dead right too.
Seth says that Khabib needs to be stripped. Simple as that. I would have to agree. I think Well, maybe,
So here's the problem if you strip Khabib. I'm of the opinion you have a year. That's kind of been the precedent set, that if you don't compete within a year of holding the belt, you get stripped. Khabib only competed in October, wasn't it? Was it October or November?
October at the latest, I'd say.
October. Yes, I agree. He did say, I'm retiring, and those words uttered out of someone's mouth make people worried, and that they should maybe make the belt available.
Yeah.
However, this news, as much as it's not really news, the fact that if someone goes out and puts on a display after this fight, if he doesn't sign on the dotted line,
then strip him. Yeah, I think that's a fair deadline. We say after like the 24th or the 25th, that's a deadline, or the end of January, let's say.
Exactly.
That's a deadline.
At the end,
we should know at that stage where the lightweight division is going, and if we don't, then strip him. That's, I would agree with that.
And even if you do strip him at that point, you have clear direction of where the lightweight division is going, because a lot of the guys have fought. So you've Charles Oliveira has made his case already, and after this weekend you'll have McGregor or Poirier, and you'll have Chandler or Hooker that will have made their case. So there'll be a little bit of a clearer picture. Look, obviously the fight I want to see, and I suppose the fight you want to see as well, is the rematch McGregor and Khabib. And there's a little part of this hopeful. I see John Kavanagh put out a tweet about the news that maybe it might happen. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I don't think the winner of Hooker Chandler makes any sense. Oliveira makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
McGregor, if he beats like Poirier, makes sense.
Yeah.
Dustin, if he beats McGregor, I don't think makes sense.
I think that the reason all four were included, and with all due respect to Hooker, he's ranked number 6, I believe, in the world, and he's after a couple of losses in his last 3 or 4. So I don't think he's in the picture. But I think this was more a nod towards Michael Chandler, because there was some anticipation about how USA wrestling versus Russia wrestling. I think we all know how that fight goes, but at the end of the day, there was some.
I think Oliveira outranks Chandler.
So do I, but you see what happened with Chandler when he first came in. He was drafted straight in as a backup.
As a backup.
I think that if there's nothing impressive in the main event, but Chandler comes out and absolutely smokes Hooker, it could be Chandler.
Could be. Yeah, I just don't.
I don't agree with it, but
I would prefer to see him move up to welterweight at that stage and take on I know he's probably not going to fight Usman because they're under the same management, right? And they're friends.
Yeah,
so that's not going to happen. Who's Usman fighting is
Gilbert Burns.
Gilbert Burns, Khabib would be a good match.
Be a great match.
I just don't think it's a big enough name for his 30-0.
No,
I think the two big names for his 30-0 would be McGregor, GSP. GSP is out of the picture now, even though he looks like he was cutting to 55 with the shape of him lately. But for whatever reason, that's off the table according to Dana.
Yeah, and look, you have to figure as well. I know what you're saying about the guys not Usman and Burns not being a big fight, but if Khabib is going to come back for 30-0, the becoming double champ certainly is going to play a factor in his decision making. Yeah,
but that's based on Gilbert getting past Usman first.
You don't think the Usman fight is feasible at all?
I heard that they're friends and they're not interested in fighting each other. That's the only reason why. I mean, I think it's if he's going to move up, it would be for the title, and whoever is the champion is the fight. I just don't think that there's is that a fight that will sell? And we know, okay, it's a good fight.
Yeah,
technically it's a good fight of two great champions, but we know that the UFC is a business. It's an entertainment business, and they're only going to put like a super fight on if it's going to sell a lot of tickets.
But then again, Khabib versus anyone is it's not going to be Khabib McGregor money. It never will be. But if Khabib turns around and says, I'm not doing the McGregor fight after this weekend, and they decide to move on with the lightweight title picture, and then Burns comes along in February and topples over Usman, and Khabib puts his name in the hat, they'll bring back Khabib in a heartbeat for a super fight where it's former champion versus champion. Do you know, I'd actually be leaning more towards Khabib fighting at welter than he would at lightweight, because from what he said in the past, I don't see him getting back in there with McGregor.
Yeah.
It's the same reason I believed that he was going to stay retired. I don't think he wants to get back into it, McGregor again. And this isn't anything to do with skill set. This isn't. I'm not buying into the belief that Khabib is afraid of McGregor. I just don't think he wants to be involved in all that vitriol and hatred and to be that worked up again. I think he was genuinely ashamed of his actions after UFC 229. It tarnished his career in a certain light, and it's probably the biggest black mark on his career, even though it was a phenomenal win.
Yeah,
I just can't see him coming back and trying to embroil himself and all that again.
Yeah, and it's a tough fight. It's a tough fight, regardless. I mean,
100%.
like
Yeah.
he won it fair and square. It's a tough fight. Like when like even if you know yourself, like if you're going through like a tournament of any description, once you get past one of your toughest opponents, you're kind of like you're glad to have that person in the rear view mirror. You don't voluntarily bring
100%,
you know, a tough opponent back around again.
Yeah.
Not unless it like hugely increases your stock or whatever. If he just beats McGregor again, does that arguably make him any greater than he is now?
No.
Probably not. If McGregor wins, there's a trilogy. You know, there's
The upside is all in McGregor's favour.
that's exactly what I was trying to say. And just Casey Terry there has commented as well, asking why Khabib smoked him the first time. I don't see the point in Khabib versus Conor again, not unless Conor beats a couple of guys in the top 5.
Yeah.
So yeah,
which is fair enough.
Which could happen also. I mean, like we could have Conor versus Oliveira or Conor versus RDA in the meantime between here and we'll say a kind of like a summer showdown between Conor and Khabib.
Which would make perfect sense.
Khabib could want Max Holloway after Holloway's performance.
Exactly, and we will get into that in a while. But the one thing I would say about the Khabib McGregor rematch is, in my opinion, if I've watched them all back, I think McGregor was his toughest test. I just think the way he challenged his wrestling, fair enough, the end of the fight, it was a different story. But I do think McGregor was his toughest test to that point. And if you look down the lightweight division, if he is coming back and he is coming back at lightweight, is there a bigger test than McGregor at lightweight? We'll find out on Saturday night. Yeah, for sure. We'll find out.
I don't think it's Hooker or Chandler. I don't think those guys are in that league. I think Oliveira is closer.
Yeah, and I think the way he dismantled Gaethje, I think Ferguson has unfortunately put himself out of the picture. I don't think anyone really wants to see that fight anymore now.
Yep. So
Oliveira, it's a toss up between Oliveira and McGregor.
And McGregor, I agree. That's where it's at for me. Seth says, no doubt, Conor was Khabib's toughest. Conor after 2-year layoff. Are you saying, Conor?
But McGregor had a 2-year layoff to that point.
Yeah. Fuck it. My words are stuck inside behind my teeth at the moment.
He'd had a little exhibition boxing. Well, it wasn't even an exhibition; it was a pro boxing match. But he did fight one guy in that time, but we won't get into that.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, let's kind of be upfront about it. You and me are severely biased here when we're representing.
I'm biased to a point.
Okay, I'm severely biased. Conor is a teammate of mine, and you know, like I run an SBG gym here in Cork, and obviously John Cavan is my coach. Conor is my teammate, and I will always bat his corner. So maybe not for me. Like this is not something that I'm going to give an impartial opinion on.
And I'm too fucking stubborn not to be impartial then, like, so. As my affiliations mean nothing to me when I'm talking shit. But yes, for me, Oliveira or McGregor. Until we get on to Max in a while. We'll talk about Max.
We'll talk about Max.
We will definitely talk about Max.
Definitely talk about Max. Come here, I want to ask you about this this interview you had, and if anybody is watching if you haven't seen this interview already, go back on the MMA Opinion page or go check out the MMA Opinion YouTube channel. Paul had a chat with one of the OGs of the UFC, star of the Ultimate Fighter Season 1. He was tipped to be the winner of that season until he got an ankle injury. Someone fell on his ankle in the middle of the cage, and there was a bit of drama around it. But Nate Rock Quarry, I mean, what an OG and what an absolute gentleman. And talk to me about that interview, because you got into some tremendous different.
We got into some deep stuff. Yeah,
you got into deep stuff, man.
Yeah.
Like Jesus, like you'd pay an interviewer a lot of money to pull some tears out of an interview guest.
we didn't quite get tears. We got some emotion out of him.
You got emotes. You hit me right in the feels some of those times, you know.
But look, Nate's he said it himself in the interview. He's an open book. He's never kind of shied away from stories about his past, even though he did have a tough upbringing. We got into that a little bit towards the end of the interview, and his defining moment for him in MMA was the Pete Cell rematch. I don't want to give too much away because you need to go and watch it.
Yeah, definitely worth watching.
But he gets into that a bit, and that's where he gets a little bit emotional because of the stakes there were going into that fight. He outlines how he was massively in debt going into that fight. He had been out of competition for so long. He'd had a back surgery, which was back then it wasn't a done thing. People that had back surgery at that point, their careers were over. They were considered lucky to be walking around. And I know this is only 16 years ago, 15 years ago, but that was the way it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
But before that, we got into some fun stuff as well. We got into he's got an autobiographical, and this is the reason I hit him up first, because I checked this out. Yeah. Autobiographical graphic novel, which is called Zombie Cage Fighter, and it's a phenomenal story. It's basically kind of his story in MMA, but a little bit more leaning towards the side of the guy that never made it. But it's also in times of a pandemic, which he wrote years ago, but we laughed about the fact that he might be slightly a prophet. Times of a pandemic, he fights zombies in it. He's a self-admitted comic book nerd.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was great touching on that. But we did the main topic really was the antitrust lawsuit. And his insight into that is phenomenal. He's been heavily involved since the beginning, since back in 2014.
And likely not to be a beneficiary of it at the end of all of that, which was that goes to show like how much he actually cares about his colleagues within the fight industry, and like this is a point of principle for him.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like a payday for him, because obviously his career had ended, we say, pretty much in and around the time
8 months before the class came into reference. So it was a 7-year window of anyone that fought during that time would fit into the class. And he does touch on the people like Spencer Fisher, who we've all read Spencer's story.
Yeah, Spencer.
Which is very poignant right now. That he fits into the class, and it's people like him that will benefit from this antitrust lawsuit. And he gets into all the details and why this is beneficial for the sport. And there's no better guy to talk on the subject because he's been living it for the last 5 years. So if you're in any way educated or uneducated on this topic and you're interested in it, check out that interview. Yep,
great interview. And fair play on the research on it as well. You knew a lot about the court case. I knew the name of the court case, that's about it. But you actually had the details on it as well, and I think that helped to pull more out of the interview as well, because like Nate was appreciative of somebody actually being up to date on what was happening. Like if that was me interviewing, I would have said, so tell me about this court case you're having, and then he'd have to describe it as if nobody understood it, whereas you jumped in with a bit of knowledge ahead of time, and he appreciated that. And
I will say he made my job a lot easier though. He'd like, I didn't have to draw too much out of him. I had to spit in my fucking coffee. I didn't have to draw too much out of him. He was an easy interview. The guy knew what he wanted to say. Coffee. Yeah. Might be an Irish coffee. We're celebrating this week.
Whereas Kristen Burke, Kristen Burke says needs some proper 12. I think he's referring to Connor in his fight coming up. Maybe needs less proper 12. But anyway, so yeah, great interview with that. What was the next thing on our thing there? Actually, one thing before you mentioned that as well, we were talking just before we came on air about other people. So obviously Spencer Fisher is dealing with the onset of CTE, and he's a current case that's starting to come into the limelight. There are many more that we're going to hear about over the next few years, and in particular one that I remember is Krzysztof Sosinski, who retired on I believe he was on a winning streak at the time. No major reason to retire other than the fact that one day he forgot his son's name as he went to pick him up, and just got such a fright from it that it's like, fuck this, I'm out of here. Do you know?
But this is it. We're still in the sport's infancy. It's only 30 years old, not even.
Yeah.
We're going to see a lot more of this over the next 20 years,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Gary Goodridge is another one that actually is very advanced in CT at the moment.
And I want to touch on this again during the review of the Max Holloway Kattar fight.
Absolutely.
Look, we'll get into it though.
Yeah. Have you cleaned up all the whiskey there?
I'm getting... did you have a straw?
Don't waste any of it, man.
No.
What's the story? What's the next thing
the
on the list
last
there?
topic is, of course, March Madness. We have...
Keep the comments coming there as well, by the way, guys. We'll read them out live on air. That's the comment line there while we're at it.
Yeah, so March Madness, we have an absolutely spectacular few weeks ahead of us. Obviously, you have Usman Burns in February, and then you get into March, and it is just title fight after title fight. There's 5 title fights in the space of just over 2 weeks. You have UFC 259 on the 6th. That is Izzy versus Jan Blachowicz. You have Jan versus Sterling and Nunes versus Anderson all on one card. And 3 weeks later, you have UFC 260 still in March. You have Miocic and Ngannou just confirmed, and Volkanovski versus Ortega. And I mean, these aren't just 5 title fights, they're 5 massive title fights. And I've seen somewhere online that someone kind of shit on the Nunes Anderson one and the God bless Anderson. Anyone that didn't see Megan Anderson's knockout at the start of last year, go back and check it out. She's a big girl. She got it all ahead of her fighting Nunes, but she has power in those hands.
She gets a lot of hate online as well on her Twitter feed. A lot of fellas accusing her of being manly.
Yeah.
I think she's a fine looking thing.
I mean, that's your preference. She's about a foot taller than you, Liam. You'd have to
I
climb
like my
up on her.
Amazonian women. Did you not watch Xena Princess Warrior Princess?
Oh, I definitely watched Xena Warrior Princess.
So just a couple of comments coming in there. Casey Terry said, after seeing what Holloway did last night, I'd rather see him and Conor go at it. The only guy Conor didn't finish at 145. I just don't think Dustin has evolved enough to show Conor something he's never seen. Agreed. Seth, Megan Anderson is going to be a tough fight for Nunes. And also Megan is beautiful. Seth, you and me, we're like a kindred spirit tonight, but we haven't disagreed yet. So let's keep that up.
It'll come.
The harmony is heartwarming.
But back to March before we get off this, because there's what I'm most excited for. You have 5 title fights over the span of 4 events. The other 2 are headlined, one by Edwards Shimev and the other by Holland Brunson.
Yeah.
What a fucking month for fights.
What a month. Yeah.
So I'm all over March and just going to be fights the whole month. I don't plan on doing anything else.
Yeah.
Maybe drink some
Yeah.
Irish whiskies.
Yep. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Seth is banging out the comments tonight. You're absolutely crazy to think Holloway hasn't evolved. I think it's Dustin that Casey said hasn't evolved, Seth.
Yeah.
Not Holloway. I don't think anybody is arguing that Holloway hasn't evolved.
I believe that Poirier has evolved as well. The move up to lightweight did him well, and he had a lot more confidence after the move up to lightweight, and confidence in his hands and ability to take a punch. So I do think he's evolved. But the Max one, that would be some fight. Fully agree with you there. That would be a phenomenal
at lightweight as well.
Yeah, that version of Max versus anyone is a tough fight.
Yep. So are we on?
Speaking of Max Holloway,
are we on to we're going to break down the card, right?
Yup. And so, we have to start with Max. What a performance!
Yep. Unbelievable. I mean, there's no other, like, a lot of commentators were speechless, and I'm still speechless.
Yeah.
Phenomenal performance.
There's no amount of superlatives could sum up that performance. Look, if I were to be critical of any of the stuff I've seen online since, it's that people are saying it's not his best performance, that look at the Ortega fight, look at the two Aldo fights. Yes, he finished those guys, but if you go back and look, he started out a little bit slow. He wasn't dominating from the first second of the fight. Like, this was...
And he did no matrix shit.
Yeah, but this... Rounds 3, 4, 5 is classic Max. That's what we get, and that's where he's at his absolute best, picking people apart, just flowing, easygoing. We had that from the first second on Saturday night. It was just unbelievable. He never turned it off. from the opening bell to the closing bell, he was just completely on. And that's the first time we've seen that from him. That's why, for me, it's 100% his best performance to date. He didn't get the finish, but that's just a testament to Calvin Kattar.
Yeah, it's a testament, and it's also a worrisome factor.
100%.
Which we'll get into that a little bit later. I felt that like the game plan from Max was on point from the start. He never gave Kattar the time to settle to be able to set his feet to throw a combination.
Yeah,
I talked to you just before we came on air. I feel that Kattar's boxing very, very good. I'm nothing against Kattar's boxing. I feel that he's a great boxer for boxing, and not necessarily that translates all of the time. It has certainly translated against Shane Burgos and certainly translated against Ricardo Lamas and Jeremy Stevens. But when he's facing somebody with the footwork of a Max Holloway or a Zabit Magny Sharipov, anybody that's able to move back away, he can't chase them.
Yeah.
Now, why is that? In my humble opinion, it's because he is doing primarily his sparring is with boxers who are going to stand toe to toe with you. They're not going to run away from you. They're going to stand in the pocket or in what we call yellow range, just outside that toe to toe range. And like we say, in the jab range, which is why he's able to land jabs most of the time, and they're very, very good.
Yeah.
But if someone takes that step back, he doesn't have that follow on. He doesn't have the distance closers. In contrast to that, Max, while he can move back away from you
and still strike,
but he can also come forward and strike. So he's able to kind of switch his stance as he's moving forwards. He's peppering jab high, jab low, and then following him with a double jab cross. So this was a battle of footwork. Yeah. And so the only thing is that at any stage throughout the entire 5 rounds, Kattar had the ability to knock Holloway out if he landed.
I mean, that's arguable. The one thing I will say is, yes, obviously the man has power, but Holloway in 24 UFC fights has never been knocked down. Oh, absolutely. He has a hell of a chin. He's a head full of concrete. Yeah, I mean, he's Hawaiian tough. The fact that, and this was my opinion, and I'm going to get into it. I have to get into it.
Okay.
Let's get into it. After the third round, I believed the corner should have pulled Kattar out of that fight. I first off believed that Herb Dean was horribly wrong for not stopping the fight at one point when Kattar was on wobbly legs. There was just too much punishment. And Kattar is one of the toughest guys. Like, did he even go down? He didn't go down. He just against the cage a couple of times, and he was basically nearly out on his feet a couple of times.
So he's actually quite close to Holloway's record of number of strikes absorbed without being dropped. So in the short amount of time, or in the shorter career that he's had in the UFC, he's already up with Max in terms of strikes absorbed without being knocked down.
They're not stats you want.
No.
They're just not stats you want.
And that's what he said to Dana as well. When Dana came up to him after the fight, he said, that was a hell of a fight. You showed some heart, and you're one tough son of a bitch. And he said, that's not what I want to be remembered for.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, absolutely 100%.
That if he can remember it. And that might be a bit sensitive of a topic to be talking about, but this is a prime example of guys that should be protected. That's what the referee is there for. I'm not having to go Herb Dean because he's one of the best in the game, and I understand that the high stakes, and yes, Kattar was still throwing punches, but he wasn't all there, and his corner should have acknowledged that as well.
Yeah, I would agree. The corner was definitely. I said to you just before we came on air as well that I felt that just going into the 5th round, I heard doubt in the corner team when they were talking to him. It was less technical advice and more cheerleading going into the 5th, and even cheerleading with a kind of a sense of like judging his reactions, judging Kattar's reactions, and if like at any stage I felt that if his eyes weren't kind of focusing or whatever, they were kind of second guessing themselves as to whether they should throw the towel in.
Yeah,
like as a coach myself, if you're already second guessing, it's time to throw the towel in.
But this is a perfect example. As a coach yourself, and how many corners have you done? If one of your guys is after losing 2 10-8 rounds, arguably, And sorry, round 3 could have easily been a 10-7.
It was on someone's scorecard.
Yeah,
definitely.
for me, he was almost out twice on his feet. So you're after seeing that for 3 rounds. This is a guy who's never been troubled by a punch, and that's your hope. You're winging a prayer as a knockout in the last 2 rounds. You have to make the tough call there.
Yeah. I don't remember which coach said it back along, but they said that like the time to throw in the towel is when your fighter no longer has the ability to win the fight. Now that's where there's a difference now between this and Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje. I mean, at like towards the end, I know that fight was stopped, or it was TKO at the end, right? But like for at least 2 rounds before that, Tony was done, gone. Like, and there was nothing coming back. They even told him to throw an Imanari roll as a Hail Mary. Yeah, you know, at that stage, the right, like that was more an obvious case for the towel to be thrown in. In this case, it was close, and I probably would have thrown the towel myself.
Yeah,
but I can't absolutely say it was like that they were completely wrong not to throw it, because Kattar has the power to knock somebody out if he catches them right up until the last 10 seconds, which is why we found the fight so exciting. Do you know that Matrix sequence where you had Holloway talking to the commentary team, looking at the commentary team, bopping Kattar with a right hand without looking at him, and then slipping 4 punches that he wasn't even looking at the same time. Like any one of those that landed, we could have had a Weidman Anderson Silva knockout, and then he would have been the winner.
Listen to me, the fan in me was delighted.
Yeah,
they didn't throw in the towel.
Absolutely.
But the human in me was thinking, oh god damn it, stop this man from getting punched in the face.
Yeah. There's no doubt that we've now taken like 3 or 4 years off the end of Kattar's life.
Yeah,
with that,
and
for our entertainment,
and how many years of quality of life?
Correct.
We just don't know. And look, with everything that's going on at the moment, Spencer Fisher, his story, Gary Goodridge. There's so many more. We just need to be minding these guys a little bit better.
Yeah. And what is it that Holloway said? Mind y'all chickens.
Mind y'all chickens.
Yeah,
didn't see that.
Mind y'all chickens. You only get one brain.
Yeah. I didn't. I wasn't blessed.
That was in the post-fight interview.
I wasn't blessed with one to begin with, so I'm all right. Liam, by the way, has seen me take that many punches in a fight. Luckily, the referee just went, nope, that's not a defence, Paul. Your face is not a defensive tool.
You didn't have Herb Dean.
Yeah, my referee was having none of me getting punched in the face anyway.
You had Pete Lavery.
Pete Lavery, that's it.
So
and he said to me after the fight, he was like, no, Paul, that's enough. And I was like, I feel fine. And he was like, you can't just keep getting punched in the face.
You're not supposed to be blocking punches with your nose. Yeah, so Seth doesn't agree with you on Herb Dean. He reckons that Herb is the most overrated referee in the history of MMA, most inconsistent referee. Most inconsistent. I'm not sure if I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Look, at that level, all I would say is at that level, you're going to make some mistakes. It's like, how many fights does he do a year? What did he do? 70-something last year? There was some.
I have no idea.
So someone released how many fights he did last year, and it was 70 plus anyway. You're going to make some mistakes. It's the toughest job to be in there.
Yeah, as a thankless job. I refereed
100%.
kickboxing fights for about 5 years, and it's the most thankless job ever. Everybody thinks that you know, you have the benefit of instant replay and you can make a split decision, and you know it's a horrible job. But was he in the wrong here? I don't think so, because I think Kattar was dangerous throughout. But that's just me.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying. He was still throwing punches. He still had that power. But I mean, you have to balance that against, is that enough to be taking that much damage? Is winning the fight worth taking that much damage? That's where you got to draw the line for me.
Yeah. So Joe Velasquez saying, I agree, refs are there to protect the fighters, but you would think Kattar's team would make the decision to stop the fight. Absolutely.
100%. Sorry, but at the end of the day, right, if Kattar's corner had pulled him out, it doesn't take away from his toughness.
Yep.
His corner that's their job. That's their job to do. Get him out of there. Save him for the next one. Like we go back to Rich Franklin versus David Loiseau.
Yep.
And that's the only other example of a 50-42 scorecard in the UFC.
Shout out to Andy Hickey for coming up with that stat as well. But
Great shout. Before Ariel Helwani got there as well, by the way. I might have pointed that out about 5 minutes before it. Ariel taking all the credit. But that was basically the end of Loiseau's career. If you go back and look at his fights after that, he was a finished man. Never looked the same. And I don't know of him now. I don't know what he's like now. But he took unnecessary damage in that fight. And I think Kattar did the same. As much as I thoroughly enjoyed the fight, don't get me wrong, and we got to see Max put on an absolute display, it was tough to watch at times.
Well, this is a hot topic here. We have a lot of comments coming in. So, sad to say, Mazzagatti is labelled the worst because Dana blasts him. Herb is the best because when he makes mistakes, Dana doesn't blast him. So, bit of favoritism. Yeah,
there is an argument. Yeah,
I get that. Yeah, Stephen Looney, another student here of SPG. If had you been in Kattar's corner, Liam, what would your call have been? You put me on the spot here, Stephen. I think I would have stopped it after the fourth. And I would have stopped it after the fourth. I think after the third, when he if the ref didn't stop it at the end of the third, and you get your fighter back on the stool, and they show you some good eye contact, and they know where they are, and you give them at least the start of the fourth round to recover, but you keep the towel in your hand, and he did okay in the fourth round. He was getting hit, but he wasn't getting as hurt as he was towards the end of the third round. So there's an argument there for carrying on. But at the end of the fourth, with 1 round to go, not a hope in hell that he was going to win the fight unless he got that Hail Mary knockout. That's the time to throw the towel and just say, look, enough is enough. You've already proven your worth. Let's live to fight another day. Let's remember your kids' names, and we'll get back to the drawing board and go from there. But as I say, there was just enough kind of confidence from Kattar that he could get that knockout, that it was a difficult decision to make. I would far rather to have made that decision for Tony Ferguson versus Gaethje. That for me was like a cut and dry. Or the Anthony Smith versus Glover Teixeira when his teeth were falling out. That was an easy call to make. Yeah. This one was a little bit more difficult in my opinion.
And it does look, you're going back to the fighter and coach relationship. In every single individual case, it's going to be different. They know these guys. They know their toughness. They know how they're going to react. But they just need to be, for me, they need to be asking the right questions in the corner.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, I'm giving my own personal opinion. I would have been tempted to throw in the towel if it was me. I'll never be in anyone's corner anyway, so it's fine. But it's one of those there. It was just hard to watch for me. I'm sure his corner feel like they did the right thing.
Stephen Looney giving out. They were fake teeth. I know they were fake teeth, but you still don't want to see your fake teeth clattering across the floor. That still means you're getting the shit kicked out of you. No matter whose teeth are falling on the floor, someone's getting the shit kicked out of them. But yeah, no, I get you. I suppose, look, we'll leave that. Do we want to see Holloway versus McGregor?
I want to see Holloway versus McGregor, but I wouldn't mind Holloway versus Khabib.
Yeah.
No, the worry, obviously, that Khabib is just going to fucking take him down and hump him. But that version of Holloway with that movement and starting that fast, he, like I said, he's trouble for anyone.
And if you take Khabib on his word, saying, I don't know if I'm retired or not, let's see what happens, and if I'm impressed by anybody, I'll think about it. Well, if you're not impressed by Max Holloway's performance, you're not impressed by anything. I mean, like, that's a talk about throwing the gauntlet down to McGregor for next weekend. Like, what does he have to do to be impressive when you compare it against Max Holloway this weekend? And
the fact that Max did all the right things, came on the mic and went, I'll jump in next weekend against either of those boys if they fall out. Basically, he didn't call out Khabib, but he said, lightweight, no issue. Put me in there. Any of them. He's definitely, for me, he's in the running.
All right, sorry, I'm getting distracted here. Stephen Looney reminded me that I lost his teeth after one of his fight, actually, because he
lost his teeth.
Yeah. So he has like a he has like I don't know what you call it, like a bridge or something like that. So he has to take that out and put in his gum shield when he's fighting. And I had it in my pocket, or I put it somewhere. And after the fight, we couldn't find his teeth afterwards. Now, at least you didn't get them knocked out of your mouth by your opponent, Stephen. But yeah, no, I apologize for losing your teeth.
Don't give him the Liam anymore.
Yeah, there's no point in giving me anything. Like, I can't even hold on to my own stuff. But anyway. But you mentioned, and I want to get onto this, you mentioned Max Holloway's call out on the mic. So post-fight interview, apart from the fight itself, apart from the performance, apart from the training camp and everything that goes with putting on a great performance, for a professional fighter who's looking to make money, the time you make money is when you win your fight and you get a post-fight interview with Dan Hardy, Joe Rogan, or whoever the hell it is, and they're standing in front of you. The eyes of the world are on you. Go, make your money.
Yeah.
Max Holloway did that. Who didn't? The Saracchio, or the Italian guy. Can we talk for a second about that shit show? I mean, what a waste. I know he had a point to make, but
yeah,
man,
but make your point and still do your interview,
or fucking make a blog post or something. Because you know, do something else. Maybe go on another interview and do it somewhere else. Like, but he just he may have got himself cut, or even
very possibly, yeah.
Like, did you saw the.
Whatever about the shit show with giving the reporters some shit.
Yeah.
Even though they're just doing their job.
Yeah.
They get to interview the winners. That's what they do.
Yep.
It was the interaction with Dana White that Dana White described in his post presser.
Yeah. They were mad dogging
territory.
Yeah. Mad dogging him backstage. I mean, the like, don't bite the hand that feeds you.
I have a feeling this is coming from the fact that everyone going into this bout was saying it was the biggest mismatch, and they were feeding Buckley this fucking 3-fight skid guy, and this was going to be his last hurrah in the UFC. They were just he was supposed to be a highlight reel knockout the other way.
Yeah.
That's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the promotion wanted, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So I think that's where this built up aggression is going towards Dana.
But I don't even think that knockout is going to save him now, because like, you piss off, like he wasted an opportunity in the cage. He wasted an opportunity in the post-fight press conference,
and he mad
dogged his boss.
I'm not mad at him for mad dogging Dana though.
Well, that's true.
I've worked in some shitty companies and I've mad dogged a few of my bosses before. So I completely understand where he's coming from.
But yeah, so let's have a quick chat about some of the other fights. I know we're kind of we're wasting a bit of time here, but let's go. Carlos Condit, Matt Brown.
Reeling back the years, or rolling back the years, whatever you want to say. Ooh.
Great fight.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an honor to watch that fight. It was like watching two legends do what they became legends for doing.
100%.
It was a great fight. Very, very technical, back and forth. Like, toughness on display all night long. Nobody getting the better of each other for any kind of major length of or any major portion of the fight. And we do have to talk about the scorecards.
Yeah.
Scorecards had Carlos Condit 30-27.
Madness. I want to ask you two questions on this.
Okay.
So, first question, what did you, obviously the scorecards were wrong and it should have been 29-28. I think everyone across the board agrees with that. Mm-hmm. But what did you make of Matt Brown's comments after that and the way he handled the scorecards?
He said that he had won. He reckons he should have won the third, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did I miss something? Because I thought he was just odd over the fact.
He was really pissed off, and he said, I don't mind losing the fight. He said, I felt like I won the fight, but if I did lose it, I certainly didn't lose it 30-27.
Yeah.
A loss is a loss at the end of the day. It's not going to read.
Yeah.
It's a decision loss at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a bit weird that he was getting that uppity about the wrong score.
Yeah.
If it had been like a close, if it had been that close that it could have been a split and it was given a 30-27, fair enough. But Condit won the fight.
Oh, yeah.
So I just don't understand why he was that.
So he was pissed off that it wasn't 29-28 as opposed to 30-27.
It's just a strange thing to be pissed off about.
Yes, but I don't think it's unreasonable. Like, and particularly like the fact that he put so much into it. You know, it was a hard fought fight, and he had some like he definitely was it the first round he won, or was it the second round? I don't know.
First round, first round.
And we're like that's like he literally took. He went for the takedown so hard that he cut himself off the fence. I mean, like he put his heart and soul into that fight, and then to be told you lost every round, I'd be a bit pissed off, to be fair, about that.
Yeah, look, I see where you're coming from. I just thought it was a strange one to come out with and to be so vocal about after the fight. That's more of an introverted thing that you do with your team and you do with your and come out after and say, great performance by Condit. This is 6 years in the making.
Yeah.
Glad we got to do it. Blah, blah, blah. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
But look, he was pissed off. I understand that. Second question is Carlos Condit's last fight in his contract. That was. So he is out of contract currently. And then you've Matt Brown. What do you do with these two? As exciting and as fun as that fight was, what do you do with these two guys now? Yeah,
I mean, we talked about last week that we felt that the best ending to this would be if both fighters left their gloves in the middle of the octagon as they walked out the cage hand in hand, rode off into the sunset. But with that performance, they're still there. Like they're still all there. They're still competitive. They could certainly float around. I mean, like this comes back to this kind of this argument, like about we say Kattar now taking so much damage. He took damage in one fight. These guys are taking damage over a whole career. I mean, what is it? They had over 80 fights between them, you said?
84, 85 fights between them now. Yeah, 86 actually. Technically, I suppose one of them's against each other, but 85, 86.
So the real question, as a coach, the real question would be, have either of them got what it takes to become a champion again?
Absolutely not, and this is it. So Dan Hardy mentioned that he was out of contract, gave Condit the opportunity to say, he kind of was, what's next? And Condit more or less insinuated that he was happy to stay on with UFC if they're happy to keep him.
Yeah.
And then Dan Hardy started asking about any top 15 guy who would be lucky to be in there with you. Are you comfortable putting Condit in there against any of that top 15 at welterweight right now?
Top 15, yeah. Top 5, no. I don't know.
Top 15. Look at the killers that are hanging around that top 15.
Yeah, but this the thing is that the two guys are so experienced.
Perfect example. Khamzat Chimaev is ranked number 15. He shouldn't be. We're not going to get into it.
I know you have a horn for Chimaev, but go on anyway.
100%. But he's ranked number 15 in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
Would you put Carlos Condit in there or Khamzat Chimaev?
Well, we won't know the answer to that until he fights Leon Edwards.
I know the answer to it.
You know yeah, but you have a horn for Chimaev, so you're completely hopelessly not partisan in this at all. But no, I think at this stage we still don't know if Chimaev is the real deal because he's fought in Reese McKee, he's fought the Welsh lad. Oh bugger. Okay, so he hasn't fought a top 10
John
guy
Phillips.
himself. John Phillips, sorry, John. But Leon Edwards we'll see where Chimaev is. I think that either Matt Brown or Carlos Condit would have the experience to be able to deal with Chimaev.
And I think Chimaev might just murder either one of them if he was in the cage with them.
Yeah, I'd have a little bit more faith in the two boys. I think that like against each other they cancel each other out because they're two phenomenal warriors with years of experience and good technique across all ranges.
It's all very true. It is all very true, but how much more of it do we need to see? How many? Fair enough for the wins that we go, oh, the boys are rolling back the years. How many more defeats are going to come with that where they get knocked out or they get badly hurt?
Yeah, I don't think it's time for either of the two of them to retire. I think it's time for both of them to move on to a smaller promotion and maybe do a kind of a retirement tour. That's my thing, or else retire altogether. But I don't see them making a run at the title, and in like with such a decorated career, such a long career, and at this stage neither of them picking up any serious injuries. They look fresh. Their faculties are with them. Quit while you're ahead. Keep your chickens, as Holloway would say. Joe Velasquez says that it seemed that Brown got tired coming into the second round. I would agree. I think the difference was cardio. Certainly in the third round, and when Brown was on bottom, he just didn't have, like, even the faces he was making. He was exasperated, and he couldn't see a way back to the top. And I think you're right there. I think cardio was the difference. I think Brown probably tried too hard to finish Condit in the first round, and kind of maybe blew his wad a bit.
Yeah. By the way, I seem like an absolute MMA hater in this podcast, but I thoroughly enjoyed all the fights last night. It was a great open to the year. Just
you were born in the wrong era. You should have been born in Roman times when they were feeding Christians to the lions in the Colosseum.
I know they've been like, lads, come on now. A bit of responsibility here. Where's the towel? Who's got the towel?
Right, what about the Leech versus Ponzinibbio?
It was a night for the dogs. Up until co-main and main, it was a night for the dogs. I don't think very many people expected that from the Leech. I think we all knew it was going to be one or the other. Yeah, it could have been a KO, but
yeah. Well, I think what I said last week is one of them was going to get knocked. There was no way this was going to the decision.
Yeah.
But it was a battle of the eye poke masters. We hadn't remembered. Obviously, Ponzinibbio was the one that Gunnar Nelson has a passionate hate for because of eye poke gate, in which there was a series of 3 or 4 eye pokes before a KO.
Preceding the KO, yeah.
And then one that I had forgotten about it. No, you remembered, but the Leech had a pretty serious eye gouging incident that Seth the Batslayer has a great video on.
Yeah.
If you want to go ahead and watch that on YouTube as well, where I think he was in a triangle or maybe a closed guard or some sort of an attack. He was in
guillotine.
The guard. Was it a guillotine?
He was in a guillotine. He was reaching over, yeah.
And he literally pulled the eyes out of someone to get out of the guillotine.
Yep.
Great escape. Highly illegal.
If you get away with it.
He did get away with it. But so this was a battle of the eye pokers.
But I think as Seth says, that's a DQ. It's not a point, that's a DQ.
Yeah.
What he did, yeah.
It's a DQ and a banishment from the company. I mean, that's a prison sentence in some.
We've seen people get cut for lesser.
Yeah.
Poor Alessio's on the block there.
But Ponzinibbio returning after 22 months, I think it was, or 2 years, or he had a bit of a. He was
just shy of 2 years, yeah.
He was fighting. What was it? Who said it? Was it Dan Hardy or John Anik said that in 2019 he was fighting for a title. In 2020 he was fighting for his life, or 2018, 2019, one of those anyway. He had a serious ailment. I can't remember what it was, but so this is the first time back. Was there ring rust there? He didn't throw a lot. Yeah. He wasn't as aggressive as he usually is. I think ring rust may have been a factor there, but you can't take it from the Leech, who swung from the fences. That left hook just caught the very, very tip of Ponzinibbio's chin.
Pin perfect, yeah.
Yep. And those are the knockouts that do probably the most damage in the long term as well, is when you spin the head.
Yeah.
You know, so like catching somebody on the tip of the chin gives you the furthest distance from the fulcrum of the neck, which means that you're going to spin the head the fastest. Yeah. So that right on the tip of the chin, even though it might not be the most forceful impact, it's the one that spins the head more and just shuts the lights out. He was done.
Yeah. Speaking of done, you had the Buckley Alessio.
Yeah.
Oof
is right.
And a bit ironic that it ended with a head kick.
Yeah.
I mean, the man for 2020, the hype, the KO of the year, they were all talking.
Yeah.
And Alessio went, I'm going to take this guy his head off and then I'm going to try and fight Dana in the back.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, what a weird finish. I mean, if it that probably made his post-fight interview all the more valuable, the fact that he head kicked the guy who was the head kick guy.
Yeah.
And then he just squandered.
He had the opportunity to take all of Buckley's hype and just go, no, I'm the guy.
Yep.
I'm the guy. Who's going coming at me? Mm-hmm. I'm the guy that's taking people's heads off.
Yep, absolutely. It was like the old the Highlander movies. There can be only one. When you kill somebody, you take all their kills and the power of everybody that they've killed. That just happened.
Was that in Highlander?
Highlander, yeah. There can be only
Don't
one.
remember that.
Great soundtrack by Queen.
That was a fantastic soundtrack. I remember that.
And a great series as well. Duncan MacLeod.
Was there a series of the Highlander?
Oh, there was a TV series. It went on for
I knew
3
there
or
was
4
a movie.
seasons.
I've only seen a movie
Oh,
once.
there's a couple of movies.
Was there? Jesus Christ, I'm way out of touch.
You have to get up on that, boy.
And I suppose, look, we need to touch on the opening fight of the main card. You had Punahele versus
Todorovic, even.
Yeah,
Yep.
Dusko. I said last week, I didn't know who was going to win, but someone was going to sleep. And it came to be. It was never going past the first round, really.
Yeah, this was the one where someone's had to go.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, there was a lot of betting leaning towards Dusko coming up and close to the fight, and I just thought it was strange. For me, that was literally a flip of a coin. Either one could have gone to sleep, but there was a lot of people lost money on Dusko. I mean, you can't be confident of. Well, I suppose people back him from his home country or whatever, but can't be confident in a fight that's that close. Strange one.
Well, come here. We could be talking all night on these. There's so much to talk about, but these ones, but like we have to end at some point here. We're gone to an hour here at this stage.
Look, I suppose we'll just look ahead. What we do have coming up. We're gonna do a preview show for the midweek card.
Yep.
We'll hopefully have another few interviews lined up in the next week or so, and then of course we're going to have a show for McGregor Poirier.
So much to talk about. We're gonna we have to do a preview and a review show. That's going to be mental. We're going to know so much about what's going to happen over the next week or so.
Yeah,
it's going to be so much to talk about. But Magny and Chiesa next. That's Wednesday night. Yeah, is that on the same time as same? Do you know? We were asking that there.
So this one is actually on the same time as Saturday night's card.
Okay,
but the main event 2:57 is on later.
Oh,
so they've scheduled that for
5 in the morning
time.
Or something.
Yeah. So we were secretly having a little discussion here whether it was worth doing a fight companion for 2:57.
Yeah, well, how would people feel about that? Like,
let us know.
Let us know in the comments.
If there's a bit of love towards us doing a fight companion, we might be able to get someone else in to do the fight companion if we can find anyone else that wants to stay up until 5 o'clock in the morning.
Well, if anybody is willing to pay, what is it? What's the pay-per-view is about
$29.95 here.
$29.95 here. Wasn't there a bigger charge over in the States?
That's in the States, yeah. In the States. $70.
Well, if you're willing to pay that exorbitant pay-per-view and then turn the audio off and just listen to myself and Paul instead.
But look, for those of you who are streaming, sensitive topic, if you want us to do a fight companion for that card, we will have a little chat about it and we'll see. But
we might be able to do a Zoom and get a couple of people to join us on the fight companion as well. I'm sure Seth the Bat Slayer would be all up for that anyway.
If there's interest, we'll have a look at trying to put something together for you, definitely.
Yeah. And just before we finish, there was a comment section here on the MMA opinion page. So the question was asked, opinions on last night's card, Dana's announcement on Khabib and next week's main event. And there was a comment here from Kevin O'Sullivan. He said, Max had an impressive masterclass over Calvin, leaving him with the odd counter to live in hope of for the chance of a win. He weathered a fair storm at the halfway point of round 3 or 4 when it looked like the end for him. Fair play. But his footwork did not match the pace of the fight and never really took him off the line of fire when appropriate or necessary. Footwork, head movement were, in my opinion, what was off for Kattar, and unfortunately for him, affected his distance control and ability to gain entries to launch and attack. Not to discredit the performance, but it again, in my opinion, helped Max look so dominant. I can't disagree with any of that, Kevin. I think that's an excellent
analysis.
Excellent
better
analysis.
Than we did. We've been talking about it for an hour, and you just summed it up in a minute.
Well, you don't get to be a coach of multiple world champions without having that
inside knowledge.
That inside knowledge. So that's Kevin O'Sullivan, also a tattoo artist, by the way. But yeah, so look, I think we're kind of going to wrap it up for today's show at that. again, thanks to everybody. Jeez, we had a fair few comments today. That was
appreciate it.
Really good, guys. Keep that up, because you know, this show, this podcast is all about the MMA Opinion page, and the fans and commentators, contributors to that page. You are the reason that page is working as it is, and this show is all for you guys. So whatever you want us to talk about, we'll talk about. Whatever you want to talk about, we'll bring you on and you could talk about it. We will always read out your comments, and we appreciate everybody for watching in.
Thank you very much, and stay blessed. Just throw me on the screen completely unprepared. Yeah, thank you very much, and stay blessed.
Stay blessed. See you soon, guys.
I want to fight with Chuck. Chuck.
I think he just blew his wad there.
Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck.
Are you still drunk right now? Are you still drunk? I went, what's going on?
Frank